once more. What the Sometimes I think, why do I care? Farvaring now, love, it's just not fair. Had the winning sides, but the kick went wrong. So yeah, this is fine. The kick's up, and Green Bay, they hurt me. They hurt me once more. What the fuck? 11 losses now in a row. Down to the back we go again. Now I don't know if the fire's loose, but 4 straight Sundays were the Bears loose. This season's done, it's sad but true. This can't go on. The kick's up, and Green Bay, they hurt me. They hurt me once more. Oh dear God, Green Bay, they hurt me. They hurt me once more. 11 losses now in a row. Down to the pack we go again. What the fuck?
All Packers, all day. F*** the Bears. F*** Chicago. F*** you. It's Green Bay f***ing Packers.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. How about that for an intro, huh? How about that for an intro? So, got a little bit to go over today. Not a massive amount as far as the Green Bay Packers, but we do have to cover what's been going on. I do want to really quickly hit on laughing at the Bears. I know we did it for an entire week, but we beat the Bears. We should probably laugh at them a little bit. We got to laugh at a lot of other teams. It's getting crazy out there. The Jets have found a new low. The 49ers are falling apart, fortunately. The Giants, I don't know what the heck just going on. I mean, I guess you're a bad team, weird stuff happens, but it's good to not be them, you know? Our problems are, in a football sense, first world problems. You know what I mean? Like, oh, man, like, we're good and we won, but I wish we were gooder, you know? Freaking, my life sucks, you know? But let's just run through a couple more little ha-has, and then we'll move on to some other, ha-has.
When you see a blocked field goal in that situation, in that context, you have to have a human emotion. Anger, surprise, joy, whatever it may be. I promise you, Rich, when that kick was blocked, I had zero human reaction whatsoever. I'm sitting here, and here they go, and the snap is down, and they missed the kick, and it's blocked, and the Packers win. I didn't even bump my heart rate. It was this terrible, terrible feeling of having no feelings. That's what they've done to anybody connected to the Bears right now. It's sociopathic status where I wasn't even mad. I'm tired being mad. I've run them disappointment, anger, fear, shock. It was just you're completely unimpressed. And then let's just go on to the next game. It was tough, really tough. The Bears had the team to beat the Packers yesterday. They had the quarterback to beat the Packers.
Yeah.
I don't think they had the guts to beat the Packers at the end of the game. And I hate the final sequence. And you know what? Bears fans may not have feelings, but they do have a memory. They didn't lose to Jaden Daniels and the Commanders because of a Hail Mary. They lost to Jaden Daniels and the Commanders on a Hail Mary the play before, the play that set up the Hail Mary. I hate the final sequence of the game yesterday for the Bears. If you want to get into the details, Caleb has the hottest hand he has had in his young career. His confidence is surging. They were happy with a 46-yarder, which was then blocked. There are players on the Packers field goal block team who said, we're actually expecting them to run another play. I don't think they played to win at the end of that game.
And really, he's not wrong. I mean, that was a kind of a crazy observation to look at it and say, we didn't lose to the Commanders on the Hail Mary. We lost it on the play before, and that's very true. I mean, they lost it on that play as well. There's a lot of things that could have gone differently that would have changed that scenario, but they didn't. And then you look at this, and obviously, to some degree, I understand, well, we don't want to risk a fumble, whatever. Fine. If it's a 30-yard field goal, if it's a 25-yard field goal, it's 48 yards. I don't even know if that's a 50%er. And you have time on the clock, and you have field goals. And by the way, you've been carving through the Packers' defense the entire time. Why would you just choose to do this? And of course, part of the issue then is not only is it a harder one to make, but when it's a longer kick, the kicker has to kick with a lower trajectory to try to get it, all that way, which is a good part of the reason why potentially, theoretically, it was blocked. Sucks to be a Bears fan, man.
The last time that I saw the Bears beat the Packers, I was 19 years old. 6 years ago, I was in college getting my degree. I was 19 years old. It's been 6 years since I've woken up happy on a Monday or a Tuesday or a Friday after a Packers game. I don't know what it feels like. The Bears could literally go 2-14, 1-16, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I want to beat the Packers. By God. I was 19. I don't know if anyone in the NFL has anyone else had to deal with this? Any other organization? I don't know what to compare this to. Maybe the Bills with the Chiefs, but the Bills at least can beat the Chiefs in the regular season. At least.
Garrett, I gotta be honest with you. I need to go on a little rant here for a second. I can't wait. Let's go. How many times do we have to go through this where a head coach of the Chicago Bears settles for what is not a chip shot field goal at the end of the game? How many times? I mean, we're literally in here with Lance Briggs making jokes about how there's no way Matt Eberflus can Mark Trestman up this situation. He didn't quite do that, but he did Matt Nagy it. Whew. There's time on the clock, there's downs, there's still yards to be gained, and we're just, 46 yards. As if they didn't miss a 43-yard field goal in the most heartbreaking fashion in a playoff game. I mean, at some point, the history of this, all they talk about at House Hall is history. How about we pay attention to the real history and how much they screw these situations up over and over and over again, usually against the Packers. Is anybody pay attention? I mean, your quarterback that you basically were gifted, that you tried to screw up for weeks, you somehow fix all that went well today. You got him the right play caller. Things were working. He led you into field goal range, and the second you cross that line they put on TV that says, ooh, they're in field goal range, as if it's a guaranteed win. Why are you stopping there? Because I'm sitting over there, and Carm's like, oh, they're going to win. And I'm being Mr. Negative again, just like I did at the end of the Washington game. We know how this goes. I'm saying, you guys are like, want more yards. I say, yeah, I want more yards. I want them to get into the end zone. Because I had zero faith it was going to actually go the Bears' way. Why? Because there doesn't need to be a better reason than that. Because they're playing the Packers, and they always these situations up. That's why. That's why. That's it. And what happened? By the tip of the finger. Oh, by the way, Carl Brooks. Of course it was fucking Carl Brooks. The guy who begged them to draft. They had to have Noah Sewell. No, they had to have Tyler Scott, who got on the field for 0 plays today. Got to have those guys. Can't draft Carl Brooks. Of course he's the guy.
I had no idea, but it makes it so sweet to know that some Bears fans, especially Adam Hogue here, were begging the Bears to draft Carl Brooks. They don't draft Carl Brooks. They draft, presumably, according to him, Noah Sewell. The Packers get Carl Brooks, who's been okay. And apparently, as far as special teams, though, he's a dynamo and is just blocking kicks out here.
I blacked out from whatever happened in that moment, but I'm not surprised because that is who you are, Matt Eberflus. You're scared, and your teams become scared, and that's why you now sit where you're at. And Ryan Poles, that's what you get too, because you should have fired him last week, and instead you kept him here, and now he's coaching scared because his job's on the line. And guess what? You blow a game to the Green Bay Packers, 11 in a row. How does that taste, George McCaskey? You enjoying it? You enjoying the Packers whipping your ass for 4 years? Keep them. Keep them some more. Run them back. Re-sign them all. Because that's all you care about, right? Is this Insiders Club crap. How about you start firing some guys? Shane Waldron was a scapegoat. Matt Eberflus is the problem. Period. And you want to keep them, hold out some semblance of hope. The only guy that showed any heart on that coaching staff, Thomas Brown, credit to you. Got your quarterback ready to play some football today. Big onions throws from Caleb Williams in the fourth quarter. Matt Eberflus, you ain't got no onions. You're scared. You play scared. You coach scared. So your team's scared. And they failed. They failed you. They quit on you 3 weeks ago. You should have fired them, Ryan Pauls. Kevin Warren, start cleaning house. Period.
So that's where Bears fans are at right now. So feels good. I got a bunch more, but I think you get the point. There's a lot of the as it happened heartbreak things. I think we've done our duty in talking trash about the Chicago Bears over the last 10 days or so. So why don't we take a break? We'll come back and talk about what's going on at a few other of these locales, and then we'll get to the Packers news. We'll be right back. So the New York Giants are in a very weird situation. First of all, you may remember they paid Daniel Jones last year, one of the most questionable decisions. And again, this is just the way it goes. You got a guy, you pay him. The question is, what does having a guy mean? But the alternative of not paying him, I don't know. But they paid him. The 4-year, $160 million contract, so $40 million a year. That was in March of 2023. So that was just last year. Now, he was already a pretty questionable quarterback. He had done okay at certain times. He had issues with fumbles or whatever. Bottom line, by 2024, all the questions of maybe he could be a good quarterback pretty much bottomed out. He was bottom 4 in passer rating. And so the decision was made to bench him. Now, as bad as that already is, to be benching your starting quarterback that's been your quarterback for I don't know how long now, 4 or 5 years, something like that, to do that after 1 year after you paid him $40 million a year, that's pretty bad. Then there was another weird situation where they didn't just bench him and put in the number 2 guy. They actually made him 3rd on the depth chart. Now, it doesn't really matter aside from stinging a little bit extra, but that's what they did. He is not even the backup quarterback. He is the number 3 quarterback. Now, the reason they did that is not because he's the 3rd best quarterback on the team, but because they don't even want to risk the chance of him coming in and getting hurt because he has an injury guarantee. So they want to bench him and make sure he stays completely off the field. Now, I didn't fully understand that because it's like, well, he's still getting paid anyways. Here's the thing. In his contract, so here is the situation. So Daniel Jones is due $30.5 million in 2025 with a cap hit of $41.6 million. In that, there is a $23 million guarantee in 2025 of his salary if he is not able to pass, if he gets injured and cannot pass a physical at a certain date, presumably around mid-March. So if he's hurt, let's say he tears his ACL, he's injured. By March 16th, let's just say, he can't pass a physical, $23 million of that contract becomes guaranteed. Why would that matter? Because they don't intend on having him on the team. So insult to injury to insult to injury to insult to injury here. He's not only benched, but he's made number 3, and he's made the number 3 quarterback as a direct signal that we want to make sure you never step foot on the field, because if you get hurt, we have to pay you next year, and we have no intention of you being on the team next year. That's essentially what was just unveiled in the last week for Daniel Jones, who was the starting quarterback of the New York Giants like a day ago. But that's not all. You may remember their new starting quarterback by the name of Tommy DeVito. We played him. Real popular guy for the Giants. He's a Jersey guy. He's got the whole hey, yo, whoa, way, yo, gabagool, right? The whole thing going on. Also known as Tommy Cutlets. You know why that's an interesting story? Because he was third on the depth chart. So they had Daniel Jones as the starter, Drew Lock was the backup, and Mr. Cutlets was third on the depth chart. They bench the starting quarterback, and they'll tell Drew Lock, actually, we're going to take this number 3 guy, this goofy little Mr. Cutlets here, and he's going to be starting, and you're not going to do anything. You're going to remain the backup. Here is what Drew Lock, who presumably should have been the starter, said at his locker.
When they tell you, it's based on what they saw last year, kind of the juice that it gave the team, how do you not wonder, well, why was I the number 2 the whole time then? Why wasn't he the number 2 then, if that's what you saw?
Again, that's a question I might still have for myself. Noah's expressed to me that I was going to be the 2, and I don't know, it's just an interesting situation. Not much I can really say about it besides, again, I'm gonna be here for him, and we're still communicating, still very good friends, believe it or not. I'm gonna be here for him. This team needs to get a win, and we start winning, everything gets a little better around here.
So he has no idea why it happened. He's obviously pretty upset by it. What? I don't understand, man. I don't know what these teams are doing. Did you make Drew Lock the number 2 for the sake of saving face or something? Because Drew Lock is more of an established name and Tommy Cutlets is a weird little guy. I don't understand. But then when push came to shove, it's like, oh crap, we got to put this guy in. Or is it just for the meme of it all? Everybody hates your team, everybody hates you, but they love this guy. Let's throw him in there. Why not? For giggles. Maybe they don't even, I don't even think they know why they do what they do. Somebody probably, they said, go get the backup, tell him to go in. Somebody called up the third string guy because they have no idea who's actually on the depth chart and just said, hey, you're starting now. And that's as far as it got. All these things make about as much sense as everything else, which is to say nonsense. Not nonsense, nonsense, no sense, 0 sense. Then we come to, once again, the New York Jets, who continue to find ways to find new lows. The New York Jets, who fired their head coach, which plummeted their team even into further darker depths, decided that their next brilliant move would be to fire their GM. Now, do I think their GM is some kind of a brilliant person? No, I don't. I think he's getting a lot more credit than he deserves. The general thought here is he's a brilliant GM that's being hamstrung by an owner. Maybe. I don't know. Hard to tell. It's hard to tell. A lot of people point to all the picks. A lot of problem with the picks. Number 1, almost all of his good picks are like top 10 picks, and there are a ton of them. Number 2, it's really confusing to say that the owner is the problem because he keeps meddling and making all the decisions, but the GM was really good because of all the really good decisions. So we're saying all the good decisions were the GM and the bad decisions were the owner. That's a little iffy to me. But Phil Savage will be taking over as interim GM. This was announced yesterday for me, which would be November 19th. The Jets will begin the search for a new general manager immediately, indicating desire to quickly rebuild the team's front office leadership. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah. But I want to give you this is an article that was written, by the way, and we'll get to some details about this article. But just to be clear, this is co-authored, The Athletic co-authored by Zach Rosenblatt and Diana Rossini. So this isn't just Diana Rossini, this is a local beat guy in Zach Rosenblatt. They wrote an article at The Athletic called Why Joe Douglas Never Stood a Chance. Here are a few things that are listed in the article in terms of Woody Johnson's overreach and not allowing the GM to do his job or just making unilateral stupid decisions. Here is the first one. And this is, it's so hard to just try to do one thing at a time because there's so much overlapping craziness. This deserves a few minutes by itself. But here is the big report that came out of this article. Apparently, the owner suggested benching Aaron Rodgers for Tyrod Taylor after the 10-9 loss to the Broncos, which shocked the coaching staff and GM Joe Douglas. The coaches had to talk him out of the decision, fearing locker room backlash and embarrassment for Rodgers. I want to be clear about something. You may not remember. You might be thinking the Denver Broncos game. What was the Denver Broncos game? The Denver Broncos game was week 4. Think about how deranged and unhinged you have to be. You made one of the biggest trades since Brady went to Tampa Bay with the intention of multi-year success with Aaron Rodgers. Presumably 2023 would be that first year. That ended in disaster. Okay, so 2024 will be the first year, probably 2025, maybe even 2026, right? You lose to the San Francisco 49ers 32-19, and then you go on a 2-game winning streak, beating the Titans 24-17, the Patriots 24-3, and then lost to the Broncos by 1 point. You are 2-2, and you want to come in and bench Aaron Rodgers. What could that possibly do to help you? You don't have a good backup. I'm not even saying I disagree that Rodgers was playing bad. Of course he's playing bad. It doesn't matter. This is it. You pushed your chips in. Bro, you don't go all in and then fold. You're already all in. Even if you know you have a bad hand, you don't fold it. You might catch it on the river, bud. Just hang in there. 4 games of Aaron Rodgers. Massive trade for a Hall of Fame quarterback, and after watching him for 4 games, went to the coaching staff and said, I want him benched, and had to be talked out of it. I mean, first of all, how does somebody that stupid become so rich? Maybe there's just an incompatibility with how the business world works and how football works, where, you know, in his world, he sees somebody underperforming, and it doesn't matter, we paid a guy a bunch of money, he's underperforming, I fire him, find somebody else, and then whatever, maybe that works in his world. I don't know. I don't know much about that world. I've never been in that world, don't know anything about that world. What are you talking about? After 4 games total? By the way, of course, this is presumably information that was kept under wraps that is now not under wraps. And now you have Aaron Rodgers, who is on a team that no longer has the coaching staff, no longer has the GM. And the next line is the guy that apparently wanted you benched in week 4. And that is now who controls the reins of the team that you're on. Rodgers has to be sitting there going, I should have never come out of that damn darkness cave. Should have never come out. Should have just freaking stayed right in there. This is horrible. What else did the owner do? Well, apparently he fired Robert Saleh without consultation. He made a unilateral decision to fire head coach Robert Saleh on October 8th without consulting Douglas or others in the organization. That's crazy. He's vetoed personnel decisions. He blocked Douglas from extending defensive end Bryce Huff's contract, as well as other moves to pay players, reducing the GM's autonomy. In other words, just telling him what he can and can't do. So it's like, okay, what is my role here? He nixed a potential trade for Jerry Jeudy, despite a deal being close, forcing Douglas to abandon the plan. Apparently, he required the team to practice during their bye week, which is a decision that was very unpopular with locker room leaders. Presumably Rodgers, very unhappy with that. I'm sure Davante was very unhappy with that. He's directed the team to sign aging and or injury-prone players like Tyron Smith and Mike Williams, both of whom underperformed, contributing to roster struggles. He overrode previous agreements between Saleh and Douglas to avoid such players. So the coach and GM both are like, nah, I don't want him. And he says, nah, overruled, we're taking him. I don't understand, man. He pushed for the trade for defensive end Hassan Reddick without committing to a new contract, resulting in Reddick skipping significant portions of the team activities. So essentially, they're putting full blame of that, or at least a large portion of the blame, on the owner. He's pressured Douglas to trade for Davante Adams, giving up more draft capital than market value, despite the Jets' struggles and slim playoff chances. Allegedly forced Douglas to fire assistant GM Rex Hogan, despite their close personal and professional relationship, further undermining Douglas's authority. He refused to allow Douglas to replace departing director of player personnel Chad Alexander. He made dismissive comments about overthinking strategy and emphasizing instinct, contributing to perceptions of disorganization. He stated at the owners' meeting that the Jets would kick you-know-what, and many found that overly brash given the team's poor performance. Presumably, again, we're talking about people within the organization going, bro, shut up. Allegedly instructed the team to bench starting safety Tony Adams, further meddling with on-field operations. And keep in mind, these are completely different things. The GM does not tell the coach how to coach. The coach does not tell the GM how to GM. He is messing with both of these things. He's not just stepping on the GM's toes, telling him what to do. He's stepping on the coach's toes, telling him what to do. Things like you will practice on your bye week. You will bench that safety. That has nothing to do with you. That's the coach's decision. Even the GM wouldn't cross over and do, shouldn't anyways. I'm sure teams have had those issues. But a good structure should not allow that. So I heard somebody was upset, like, why doesn't Gutekunst bench Quay? That has nothing to do with Gutekunst. That's a 100% Matt LaFleur decision. Now, if there is some intermingling going on, there shouldn't be. You should not be allowed to do that. That's not how good organizations work. He took credit for perceived talent on the Jets roster, suggesting he built the team rather than the GM, further marginalizing Douglas. He took an increasingly active role since returning in 2021, contrary to expectations that he would remain hands-off. By the way, there's not a single Jets fan out there that likes this guy. They all understand that all the dysfunction comes from the top. Apparently, he has a brother that is, I think, pretty well liked. It was a situation where Woody Johnson left for a little while. I think his brother took over, and the team made a handful of really good decisions, and then he came back, and everything went back to being crap again. Now, it should be noted, again, all of this came from an article by Zach Rosenblatt and Diana Rossini. Now, somebody, I forgot who posted this, but somebody brought this up. This is from March 31st of 2024. From Awful Announcing posted it. Somebody retweeted it as like a, should we be believing this? Colleen Wolfe apologized for her controversial report about Woody Johnson and Robert Saleh getting into a heated dispute. Now, I don't believe Colleen Wolfe has anything to do with this particular article, but the point is, she came back and said, regarding my comments surrounding the Jets and the Around the NFL podcast, no, I was not at the annual meeting, and yes, I was told of exchanges between head coach Robert Saleh and Woody Johnson by someone in attendance. Other on-site Sunday night have reached out and described the interaction differently. My intent wasn't to break news. I leave that to the insiders. My sincerest apologies, blah, blah, blah. The point of this, that somebody who's a Jets fan or whatever brought up, is don't believe this. Remember last time when somebody said something and then they ended up apologizing and saying they didn't know what they're talking about? I think there's a difference between somebody hearing something offhand and reporting it kind of tongue-in-cheek at just on some podcast compared to like a breaking news article at The Athletic that is co-authored by not only a national reporter in Diana Rossini, but a local Jets reporter, Zach Rosenblatt. Maybe it's all fake. I don't know, but I don't think so, especially since this is a very leaky organization where lots of coaches and players are leaking things, and this is very obviously coaches who are leaking things. For example, the Aaron Rodgers thing. Who knew about that? Where did we hear that? The coaches had to talk him out of it, right? Now, maybe that leaked to all the players and everything else, and they told everybody, and it's all around the whole organization. I don't know. But the only people that were involved were the GM, some coaches, presumably Saleh, who it's hilarious that he is now not in the building, so he can talk all he wants, and Woody Johnson, who's not going to say anything. Bottom line, I tend to think, although this is probably a one-sided opinion from people who are, it's one side of the story, I tend to think they're true stories. And so the Jets, who sit at their bye week right now, apparently all practicing because the owner has demanded it, they are set to play the Seattle Seahawks at home. We'll see if all that extra practice worked out for them. On one hand, you're catching a Seattle Seahawks team that's got to fly all the way across the country, and you're coming off a bye, presumably rested and having practiced a bunch. Maybe that'll end up working in your favor. On the other hand, this level of dysfunction, not usually the best thing in the world. All right, let's take our final break. When we come back, I want to do a little bit of laughing at the 49ers, which is great. We never get to do that. They're in a little bit of a tailspin. And, since we haven't lost to them, at least not yet, we can talk all the trash we want. And then after that, finally, again, we'll get to the latest Green Bay Packers news, of which there is some. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So I don't know a ton about the 49ers and their staff or the beat reporters. But I know Grant Cohn. I certainly know this guy. I know he's been around. I've seen his YouTube. I remember looking at his YouTube one time. This guy's putting out like 7 episodes a day. This guy is an absolute psychopath. And there was also an issue at one point where he had made a comment and a 49ers player called him out. Like, it was kind of a big deal. I don't think he actually made physical contact with him. I don't really remember, but was more or less like, you're going to run your mouth, like say that to my face kind of a deal. So he is the one that is pretty well known. He's sort of a content creator, but he also presumably has a press pass and whatnot. So he's one of those fellows. But his official stance right now, which I think 31 other fan bases look at this and go, what are you talking about, bro? His official stance, and I don't think he's alone on this, here's what he tweeted November 17th. If the 49ers miss the playoffs, they should fire Kyle Shanahan, period. Now, can I just say this real quick? I shouldn't say that. Firing Kyle Shanahan would be fantastic. He's a great coach, and I would love for the 49ers to just completely crash and burn. There is a scenario, however, and it's not super unreasonable, that, and I really don't think the 49ers will fire him, but just stick with me here. If they did fire him, how long before the Chicago Bears fire their coach and reach out and offer the sun, moon, and stars to get Kyle Shanahan to coach for the Chicago Bears? Now, Kyle maybe will do that whole I'm going to take a year off thing. I don't know. Maybe there's another more enticing job out there, but that really scares the living crap out of me, that scenario. By the way, speaking of scenarios, the other thing that's being constantly brought up, and I should maybe save this for another time, but I'm going to forget. There's a very real chance that the Jets will be moving on from Rodgers. We'll talk about that maybe in another time because there's a bunch of financial implications with that. It's absolutely hilarious. They're going to have to eat like $60 million to get rid of Rodgers, which is like the same situation the Packers are in. And the Jets bought into basically like, what, 2022, 2023 Rodgers scenario? Like, that's what you bought into, you idiots. It's not impossible that Rodgers is gone and the Vikings are looking to bring somebody in. Now, it's a little bit of a stretch because the Vikings do have a guy waiting in the wings. Whether they're going to hand over the keys, I don't know. Also, Darnold is not doing a terrible job. Also, I think the biggest hindrance to all this, Rodgers looks like garbage. And why in the hell would you ever pay that guy? Why would you give him a pile of money? He's not good for your locker room. He's not good for your culture. He's not good on a football field, and he's probably going to want a lot of money. I understand the lulls of it all. But anyways, that's also being floated out there. I don't buy it as much as the 49ers coach to the Bears thing. But both of these things, I just feel the universe closing in on me, and I don't really like it. Anyways, here is Grant Cohn after the game when they lost 20-17 to the Seahawks, falling to 5-5. By the way, the 49ers right now are at 10th on the list of playoffs. So the Packers are currently at 6. So it's you got your 4 teams, and then you got Vikings, Packers, Commanders in the playoffs. Then it's the Rams, then it's the Seahawks, then it's the 49ers. So not only are the 49ers down a little ways, but the 2 teams that are in their way are in their division. And they just lost to the Seahawks. Now, this game against the Packers is a pretty big deal. If they beat the Packers, their odds jump up to 46%, so it's pretty much a coin toss at that point. If they lose, they're down to 17%. We can't completely knock them out of the playoffs, but if we beat the 49ers, they're in a lot of trouble. We'll cover all that in a little bit. Here is Grant Cohn walking out of the stadium after the loss.
Wow. The 49ers just lost 20-17 to Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks. And really, Geno Smith didn't even play well, but on the final drive of the game, he had about 2.5 minutes in the timeout to march down the field, and the Niners let him march right down the field. And the way he scored was finally, after like 3 years of facing the 49ers, realizing that the scramble is always available. He scrambled for 12 yards. 2 plays later, he scrambled for a touchdown. End of game, he jogged into the end zone. It was embarrassing for the 49ers, but the defense isn't the reason they lost.
They lost because Kyle Shanahan's offense was putrid. And putrid is nice. It could have been worse, but Brock Purdy and Jawan Jennings carried the offense the entire game. Brock Purdy only threw for about 150-something yards, but those completions were to heavily covered receivers, usually Jawan Jennings, and when he wasn't throwing to Jennings, he was scrambling. Now, he missed a couple of checkdowns, but essentially Kyle Shanahan's plays weren't getting people open. It was funny, I talked to Kyle Shanahan this week about giving Brock Purdy the ability to change things at the line of scrimmage. We saw Geno Smith do it over and over again in this game. Kyle Shanahan said, all the answers are built into his plays. Well, is the answer having Brock Purdy run for his life? Because he's good for that, but I don't think you drew that up. And then the other thing he said is, well, sometimes he gives Brock 2 plays, and he can choose between them at the line of scrimmage. How many times did you see Brock do that today? I was counting. The answer is 1. Did it in the fourth quarter, went can. Tossed the ball to McCaffrey, who ran left for -1 yards. So it really seems like Kyle Shanahan knows what he's doing. No, he's a fraud. He has no creativity. His offense is trash, despite having an excellent quarterback, an excellent wide receiver, and a couple of good running backs, even though he only uses one of them. Again, Jordan Mason didn't really get to play today. And you could say, well, George Kittle wasn't there. When he gets back, they're 5-5. Their odds of making the playoffs this year, forget winning the division, making the playoffs is probably less than 40%. Because they couldn't score more than 17 points against Seattle with a really good quarterback.
Sounds like he's going to cry.
So, when the 49ers fire Kyle Shanahan at the end of this season, he can look back at this game as the moment he lost it all. Went to 5-5 against Geno Smith. And so maybe next time he wants to dunk on a local beat writer on a Friday, don't lose to Geno Smith on a Sunday. It's a bad look.
I gotta look more into this, man. We got to do more laughing at the 49ers. I got to pay more attention to that because that is a heck of a storyline. You got a beat writer that talks all kinds of trash. The team absolutely hates him, and they just go back and forth. That's some great content. It's actually rather interesting. So a couple things here. Let's play out this context here because I by the way, if you haven't noticed, Grok, which is the AI for X now, used to be pretty trash. Didn't really use it at all. Now it has some search functionality where it can actually search not only the web, which GPT-4 can do, and Perplexity can do, which is a great resource, having to search the internet to find some information. It can not only do that, but it can search Twitter. So it's pretty freaking fantastic. Anyways, a little further context. What are you talking about dunking on me? Let's find out. We'll find out together, shall we?
By now, you've probably seen the video of Kyle Shanahan getting upset with me for asking him about Brock Purdy being allowed to, or not being allowed to, change routes with hand signals pre-snap. If you've watched the video, you can see that Kyle Shanahan really didn't like the question. He started making faces. He said I didn't know what I was talking about. He cut me off a few times. I had to really stick with it and follow up a few times, politely and professionally. And if you go back and watch and look at the transcript, to his credit, after the faces, he answered the question. And here essentially was his answer. Teams don't let quarterbacks change routes with hand signals pre-snap as much as they did in the past. We all remember Peyton Manning doing this, and Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers still does it. He said basically it's not as common, it's not as prevalent anymore, although that implies that teams still do it. Some teams do. The Niners just aren't one of those teams. What Kyle does is he gives Brock Purdy 2 or 3 plays to choose from pre-snap. He gives Purdy the illusion of choice and freedom. Because from
he's talking so much trash. Like he's kind of answering it, but he's just being a douche. All right, so we kind of get the idea. This is 3 minutes long, 3.5 minutes long. We don't need to go any further. So that was essentially it. So he didn't know what he's talking about and all that stuff. Furthermore, I found this. This is kind of interesting. So Ted Wen, I think is how you say it, Nguyen, whatever. Football Film Analysis is his Twitter handle. He's over at The Athletic. He says, Purdy forced to throw hot on 3rd and 11 when a first could have iced the game. Kurt Benkert obviously had some questions about some of the comments he's had, whatever, don't care. Here's what he said. The 49ers offense doesn't adjust protections, they just throw hot. Other teams know this and can force their hand in critical situations just like we saw in the Super Bowl last year. It's mind-blowing stuff that a simple flipper would fix. I looked up flipper, it's a whole big thing about pass protection, whatever. But he goes on to say there's a happy medium in my opinion. Some plays do not need a protection change, and it makes sense to go fast and throw hot, while on critical downs you should only be calling the best play possible, and there should be a few tools for every quarterback to get the edges protected the right way. This is what Jordan Love does so well on third downs, especially in the red zone. During my time in San Francisco, this was the number one thing that made no sense to me. If there is a clear and easy answer, why not empower your quarterback to get you into the best protection? This stems back to Shanahan's history as a receiver, in my opinion, instead of from seeing it through the lens of a quarterback. But what do I know? I'm just a YouTuber. I found that because San Francisco 49ers person retweeted all that and said Shanahan told Grant Cohen he didn't understand what he was looking at. I think Kirk does, and he's asked the same question. So bottom line is this is kind of a known issue, and it sounds like it is being manipulated by other teams. The fact that you're not allowing your quarterback to make changes, now there's one change, which is changing the play, changing the route concept, and changing the protections, but you're kind of hamstringing yourself a little bit when you don't do those things. And essentially what Kurt Bankert is saying is that if you don't adjust your protections and we're able to manipulate you, which is where I think Jeff Hafley can have some success, because that's where mugging up on the line can kind of, if you're not making any changes, then we can just start bringing people here or dropping these people, do whatever, right? So then we also, we not only know what you're doing and we know what you're not doing, which is adjusting your protections, but we know what the plan is for the quarterback, and that is to throw hot. And so we should have a plan for that too. This all should be good news for the Green Bay Packers. We'll see if our defensive coordinator can do anything about it. And again, we have the 49ers' former defensive coordinator in the building. So there's a lot of things working to our advantage. You have a somewhat disgruntled team. You have an offense that apparently is lacking creativity. You have a quarterback that is not able to make changes, which causes limitations, which you should know exactly how to attack that kind of thing. I don't know, man. We'll see. All right, so the biggest news for the Green Bay Packers right now is essentially the injury report. Jaire Alexander is essentially the only player who is not on the field, which people always phrase it that way, like, oh, the only guy was Jaire, and I'm just sitting here going, bro, Jaire, what the hell? Like, I don't feel good about it, but that's fine. I guess that more or less means we're healthy. The other news, though, is that rookie running back Marshawn Lloyd did not participate, but he was placed on the NFI list, the non-football illness list, after he needed an appendectomy. Now, there were people talking about this already prior to this even happening, the fact that they were going to, that they brought him back, they activated him to the roster, because remember, they opened a 21-day window. There was a period of time where he needed to be brought back, and then he needed the appendectomy. It was like, oh, crap, that's a bad thing. Well, after about a week, they said he recovered enough for whatever. They brought him back to the active roster. And then the plan seemingly was immediately to put him on the NFI list. Now, essentially, this means he's back on the 4-game deal. So he's got to miss 4 games again. He won't be back until week 16. So, I mean, it pushes it more and more into what I've been saying for a long time anyways, and that is it's a redshirt season. I mean, we keep skipping this thing across the lake. The odds that he's going to come back and basically have any kind of a role when we have established running backs, we're going to trust him to come in and do something, in the playoffs? I maybe a snap or two. I really don't think so. Pending injuries to other players. In addition, the corresponding move, the Packers brought back Alex Magoo to the practice squad. Fan favorite Mr. Magoo is back. Don't know why he's so popular, but he is, and he's back. Believe he's a wide receiver still. So, I don't know. He's a quarterback, then wide receiver. I think he's still a wide receiver. I don't know. I don't think it's going to matter. We're not going to see the guy. But the official injury report for Wednesday, Jaire did not participate. Limited participation from Kenny, Edrin Cooper, Josh Jacobs, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Rasheed Walker, Evan Williams, and Colby Wooden. Colby Wooden, by the way, returning from his injury. On the other side, a lot of injuries over there, at least a lot more severe injuries. Limited for Jacob Cowing, John Feliciano, Brock Purdy, and Charvarius Ward. Guys that did not participate, Trent Williams with an ankle injury, Christian McCaffrey, which was not injury-related, rusting player Achilles, so that's strange to say it's not injury-related, but also we're resting him because of his injury. Like, okay. Kevin Givens didn't participate. Nick Bosa with his hip oblique injury did not participate. And Tatum Bethune, linebacker knee injury, did not participate. So anyways, I'm going to leave it at that. You guys have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
49, your golden mask deceive. California dreams will freeze them in the eve. Lambo waits with bitter winter's breath. Your west coast ways will meet their foes in death. Grim and gold. Panthers mocked. We crush your dynasty in frozen midnight hour. Nine and 5, your dynasty of old now burns to ice in Wisconsin's cold. The Bay of Green will drown your golden state. Your legacy will obliterate. Mutant gold. Panthers mocked. Your Western Empire falls in frozen Lambo Nacht. Nine and 5, your dynasty of old now burns to ice in Wisconsin's cold. The Bay of Green will drown your golden state. Your legacy